Chapter 17. The Surprise Move. A man surprised is half beaten. This chapter is really a brilliant example of why I love reading the writings of Irving Chernev, who wrote with such a delightful, witty, light-hearted manner. In this chapter on the surprise move, he talks about what he thinks might be described as the basic pattern for the surprise move, when a lexicographer, whose name was John, was caught in the act of kissing the maid by none less than his wife. "Why, John," his wife exclaimed, "I'm surprised." Even in this trying situation, the dictionary compiler's training did not desert him. "You're not surprised," he answered. "I'm surprised. You're astonished." Well, I'll leave it to you to read the rest of this short but beautifully written chapter. Needless to say, however, that the surprise move is very difficult to defend against, but the habit of examining every possible check or capture will reduce your losses. And in the positions that follow, we can study them with profit, but their chief purpose is to delight the reader, or in this case, the watcher, the viewer, with the fireworks effects of these moves. In the first example, it is black to move, and black begins by creating a threat of checkmate, and that is done by Queen e2. Queen e2 threatens checkmate on the f2 square. White decides to bring a rook across in order to defend the f2 square, but here comes the surprise move. Queen takes knight. The point of this move is that if the queen is recaptured, the rook swings across and delivers checkmate. Not bad. Let's see what comes next. In this example, it's white to move. We can see that there's a lot of open space around this black king, but how can we actually exploit that? Well, since this is all about entertainment and delight, let me show you. Bishop g7 check forces the king to take a step forward. And in this position, it's not always easy to see, let alone in advance, but Queen e6 is the surprise move that forces the knight to recapture. But after the knight recaptures, pawn takes knight and delivers what is a checkmate. Even better than the first example, let's keep moving and see what else this chapter has to offer. In this example, it is white to move, and white starts off by playing a move that would normally be considered good if, in fact, the bishop was supported, and that move is bishop b5. The reason this is a surprising move is because the bishop's not supported, and black can simply play queen takes bishop. So why has white gone down this road? And the reason white has gone down this road is because now white can follow up with the move rook takes pawn check, which forces the king to recapture. And then there's queen to h5 check, which forces, after the bishop blocks, a checkmate. If you go back to the start position, you'll see why it was necessary to give this bishop away. It's because the bishop is in the way of the queen. So the queen would not have been able to come in and follow up with the checkmating attack only because the bishop moves away. And if you're going to move the bishop away, you might as well do it violently by attacking the queen. Stockfish says that the best move here would be knight f6 for black, but then, of course, white wins a queen. In this example, it is white to move, and there is a beautiful move here, knight b6, check, hitting the king, the rook, and the queen. And of course, if that knight is captured, the queen on a3 swoops up to a8 and delivers a lethal checkmate. In this example, it's black to move. And black sees that he has a lot of strength against this knight here on d4. Both the bishop and the queen both attack it. And black makes the mistake of capturing that apparently undefended piece. What's the surprise move that white responds with? Well, white surprises black, not by taking back, that would not be a surprise at all, but instead by playing queen to h8, check. This move forces the bishop to recapture the queen and allows white to play rook takes bishop, checkmate, making the most of, essentially, a vulnerable first rank. One of the things that Chernev wrote about at the start of this chapter is that, as surprising as any of these moves may be, they are nothing but logical moves. Let's have a look at some more of them. In this example, black begins by playing the beautiful move rook e3. This move is very nice because on one hand it seems to give the rook away. This rook is attacked twice here, once by this rook and once by the queen, and only defended by the bishop. But the point of the play is that whether the rook or the queen captures, let's start with the rook. If the rook captures rook, then our queen can swoop in and give a checkmate now that the rook's no longer here. And if instead the queen captures, well, of course now we can take a queen for the sake of a rook. Now, if instead the queen moves away, and this can happen, after a rook trade. So for example, if white wants to insert rook takes rook, we take rook. If this queen wants to move away, well, now there is one more element of surprise, and that is rook takes h3. Checkmate. King can't move anywhere, and this pawn is pinned and therefore can't move. Once again, these are logical moves utilizing combinations of all the various weapons we've learnt up until this point in such a way that it overwhelms the rational mind and becomes of an almost irrational appearance. It's a surprising move. In this example, it's white to move, and white has an unbelievable move, which is very difficult to see. Black has a lovely looking position with beautiful control on the D file, but white also has a lot of material and quite an attack against this black king. White would love to be able to use the back rank, but can't because this rook is in the way defending. Would also love to be able to use this diagonal, but can't because the queen is on that diagonal defending. The move played is a violent move that essentially forces checkmate. White plays the astonishing move rook d5, putting the rook on a square where it can be taken by a pawn, a bishop, a queen, or a rook, and where in every single case, doing so would be fatal to black. Let's have a look at why. What white has done, white has managed to break the communication between the queen and the rook. So, if the bishop captures, well, now we can take that rook on the back rank, and that is a checkmate. The queen no longer in communication. If instead the rook captures our rook, well, now the rook's given up on the back rank, and again we can give a checkmate. If the queen captures, well, now the queen's given up on the diagonal, and we can give a checkmate here. And of course, if instead the pawn were to capture, once again the communication is broken between the queen and the rook, and we can then take the rook with checkmate. So that's a phenomenal move that's purely logical, but definitely comes with an element of surprise and very difficult to see. It highlights the importance of thinking methodically about all checks and captures, as well as all threats of checks and captures, this one being a threat of capturing the queen primarily. In this example, it's black to move, and this is, again, an astonishing move. What black notices here is that the white king is immobile. It cannot move anywhere, and if only black can deliver a check somehow to the king, then it would be a checkmate. One of the ways that black sees possible in a hypothetical world would be if this knight were to be able to land on g6, that would be a checkmate. But how to get there? At the moment, you would have to go via e5 and then g6. But if you go via e5, the knight simply gets captured. And if the knight were to be captured then, if I show this variation, we would love to be able to play then g5, and that would be checkmate if it weren't for this bishop. That bishop can then swoop in. Otherwise, that would have been checkmate. And it's from that sort of an analysis that black realizes that this bishop needs to remain on this diagonal. And it's from that black realizes that this pawn is actually not defended, and black plays a rather surprising move, rook takes pawn. Now white doesn't suspect this deep concept and captures the rook, probably expecting the knight to recapture. But here comes the surprise. The knight retreats to e5, aiming at g6, which will be a checkmate if nothing else is done about it. So now white is doomed. White can take the knight, but that allows g5 checkmate. There's no longer a bishop here to capture the pawn. Or if instead of taking the knight, white plays something else, let's say h3, well then the knight will get to g6 and deliver the checkmate. So that's a phenomenal idea. But I think that this one is the most impressive. In fact, Chernev calls this the most brilliant move in the history of chess. I don't know if that's the case, but it's got to be up there because what we're about to see is absolutely mind-boggling. It's black's move, and black starts with the move rook takes bishop. This move is easy enough to understand because you can see if the pawn captures the rook, then our knight is going to be able to jump in with a royal fork, including the rook. And white simply doesn't want to do that. So therefore, white is not going to recapture the rook, and therefore the rook can actually take the bishop. That's not too surprising, but it's a nice move. What is surprising is that after white attacks our queen on the next move, where does this queen go? Have a think about it. Where would you put that queen? Maybe you would insert a check here first. Maybe you would put the queen here or here. Well, Marshall, who was the player in this game using the black pieces, Marshall put the queen on g3. A square where it can be captured conceivably by two different pawns or by a queen. An incredible move, and this is the reason why. If the h-pawn captures, knight e2 is checkmate immediately. If the f-pawn captures, then knight e2 forces the king into the corner, where we can then deliver checkmate with our other rook. So in actual fact, just logically speaking, neither of these pawns, as scary as they look, are actually effective. Both of them are lethal to the white team. That really only leaves one more capture to consider, and that is what happens if the queen captures. And in that case, again, we have this knight e2 check, which forces the king into the corner, and then we can recapture the queen. Now, because this pawn is pinned, it can't recapture the knight. Therefore, if the knight is going to be recaptured, it would have to be with the f-pawn. But that allows us, again, to capture this rook on the back rank and deliver a checkmate. So therefore, the knight can't even be captured. The king has to step away, allowing the knight to come back to e2 with another check. The king is forced back into the corner, and then this rook, which was under attack, now frees itself by going to menace this other rook. And after they trade themselves away, black is obviously in a much better position. But just to go back and look at this, this started with one very nice move, followed by what Chernev called the greatest move in the history of chess. Queen to g3. Beautiful, beautiful play. Well, that concludes the chapter on the surprise move. I hope that Chernev's wish has come true and that these examples, studying them has both given you a profit, but also delighted you. In the next chapter, we're going to be looking at combined operations, where we're going to be combining, once again, all of these various different weapons that we've learned throughout the journey that has been this book. And we'll see you then.